Have you ever noticed how some people document almost every part of their lives online? Their food, their vacations, their faces, while others almost never appear in a single post? Not because they don't own a phone, not because nothing interesting happens in their life, but because something in them consistently pulls back from being seen. Most people assume this comes from insecurity, shyness, or not liking how they look. And sometimes that is part of it. But psychologically, the full picture is much more layered. Because not posting photos can come from privacy, self-protection, anxiety, identity, control, overstimulation, or simply a different relationship with attention. And the important question is not just, why don't I post? It's this. Is this a conscious choice or an unconscious avoidance pattern? Because those two things can look exactly the same from the outside. This video breaks down the hidden psychology behind people who stay visually invisible online and what that pattern can reveal about how their mind is wired. The first reason is identity protection. Some people have a very strong internal boundary between who they are and how they are perceived. To them, posting a photo does not feel like sharing a harmless moment. It feels like handing part of themselves over to other people's interpretation. A photo online can be liked, ignored, judged, screenshotted, misunderstood, or remembered in a way the person cannot control. For people with a deeply internal sense of identity, that exchange may simply not feel worth it. They do not need the outside world to confirm that they exist. They do not need their life mirrored back through reactions. Their sense of self is not built around being visually available. So their absence from photos is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it is just a boundary, a quiet way of saying, this part of me belongs to me. But for others, the reason is different. A major factor is the fear of being evaluated. Posting a photo of yourself is not just uploading an image. It is making yourself visible in a way that can be judged by people you may not fully know, trust, or control. And for some people, that visibility feels emotionally expensive. Before the photo is even posted, the mind starts running through possible reactions. Will people think I look strange? Will they compare me to someone else? Will they notice something I do not like about myself? Will they ignore it completely? And suddenly, a simple image becomes a social risk. The brain chooses the safest option, do not appear. The problem is that avoidance often gets stronger the more it is repeated. The less visible you become, the more intense visibility can feel. So over time, not posting can shift from a preference into a protection strategy. Another layer is self-objectification. This happens when a person stops experiencing themselves from the inside and starts observing themselves from the outside, almost like they are looking at themselves through someone else's eyes. Instead of asking, was this a meaningful moment, they ask, how do I look in this? And that changes everything. A photo is no longer a memory. It becomes evidence. Evidence of whether they look attractive enough, confident enough, interesting enough, normal enough. For someone caught in that pattern, every image becomes a small review of the self. So avoiding photos is not always about disliking attention. Sometimes it is about avoiding the internal criticism that attention triggers. There is also the need for control. Once something is online, it is no longer fully yours. It can be saved, shared, interpreted, or separated from the moment it originally came from. For people who value control over their image, their privacy, or their personal context, this can feel deeply uncomfortable. And that need for control often has a history. Maybe they were criticized before. Maybe they were made to feel exposed. Maybe they learned early that being seen can become unsafe, embarrassing, or emotionally messy. So they build digital boundaries, not dramatically, not loudly. They just stop giving the internet access to their face. And then there are people for whom visibility is simply draining. Not everyone experiences attention as rewarding. For some, notifications, comments, reactions, and the awareness of being watched feel less like connection and more like pressure. They already feel overstimulated by daily life. The last thing they want is another layer of social awareness. For these people, posting a photo does not open a door to something positive. It opens a door they would rather keep closed. And that is not automatically unhealthy. It may simply reflect how their nervous system handles stimulation, attention, and social energy. So the real question is not, should everyone post more? The real question is, what is the motive behind not posting? Because privacy and avoidance can look identical. Someone who values privacy may feel calm about not posting. There is no inner conflict, no hidden fear, no sense of shrinking. They simply prefer to keep their life offline. But someone avoiding visibility may feel something different. They may want to show up more, but feel blocked. They may imagine posting and immediately feel tense. They may delete photos before anyone sees them. They may tell themselves they just don't care, while secretly caring a lot. That distinction matters. Because if the behavior comes from values, it does not need fixing. But if it comes from fear, it may be quietly making your world smaller. A useful way to test this is simple. Imagine posting a photo where you genuinely like how you look. Not a perfect photo, not a performance, just a normal, honest image of yourself. Then notice what comes up. If you feel neutral, private, and uninterested, that may point to values. If you feel anxious, exposed, or suddenly self-critical, that may point to something worth understanding more deeply. The goal is not to become someone who posts everything. That is not the point. The goal is to know whether the choice is actually yours. If anxiety is involved, the answer is not to force yourself into sudden visibility. That usually creates more pressure, not more freedom. A better approach is gradual. You might start by keeping photos only for yourself without deleting them immediately. Then maybe sharing one with a person you trust. Then maybe posting something that does not center your appearance. The goal is not performance. The goal is to teach your system that being seen does not automatically mean being judged, rejected, or reduced to an image. And if after all of that you still decide not to post photos, that is completely valid. Privacy is not a flaw. In a world where visibility is often treated like proof of existence, choosing not to be constantly seen can be a very clear form of self-respect. Not posting photos on social media is not one thing. It can be confidence, it can be fear, it can be control, it can be overstimulation, it can be privacy, it can be protection. The behavior is only the surface. What matters is what is underneath it. Because the most important difference is not between people who post and people who do not. It is between people who are choosing freely and people who are disappearing without realizing why. If this kind of psychological breakdown is what you are looking for, subscribing means you will not miss what is coming next.